feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter. Feeling like I gotta get it.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. Yeah. We're coming at you live here from WolvesFest at Falling Knife Brewing Company. Thank you all for being here. This is really cool for me, for us. I got Britt Robson here with me from MinPost. Yeah, can you hear us all right? Yeah. All right, cool. All right, well, I see many of you in line for beers and just right here. I got Britt here. Britt, I thought we're going to take a bunch of questions from people. There's a third microphone over here that will have you take any questions. Come line up whenever. But Britt, I thought the way to start talking about this for us would be to talk about the first game against the Lakers. What are you looking for most in this game?
I guess in terms of winning or losing, I think what I'm looking for most is how Anthony Davis gets defended. Anthony Davis was somebody who kind of destroyed the Wolves a few times when the Lakers won the game. Now we have Julius Randle. I will say, first of all, we want to clear something up. I saw the Lynx on television the other night, and they showed a guy who the Wolves recently acquired in the audience, and I said to my wife, "That's John Randle." I was dead serious. So it's a tick. It's going to be a tick for a long time. Apparently, you can turn it into a drinking game if you want. It'll be John Randle most of the time. Maybe every now and then I'll get it right.
I love it.
That said, Julius Randle is on the team, and Nas is now heavily in the rotation in terms of guarding the front court. And I think one of the things I'm looking at is how the tandem of LeBron and Davis get defended by this refashioned front court.
Yeah, I'm with that. I think when I just think about the Lakers matchup, I think about like a big, strong team, right? And in ways, I mean, I think there's questions about what Julius Randle is going to bring to the team, but at a minimum, he adds like some force, right, to this team. He adds some physicality in that matchup. Unfortunately, we haven't really got a chance to see him play all preseason with this group.
Right.
That's probably going to be my main thing coming out of that game is what was our vision of what this team was and has been in the preseason, and how does it look when Julius Randle is playing with everyone as well, because he just played in that.
Right, and when you have that starting five, which I think they are very certainly committed to early, it is more of a half-court offensive team. And so how that plays against Davis is going to be very important. Where Davis floats and roams if he's on Rudy, which I don't think he will necessarily be most of the time. I think he will float. How Randle can then be moved against that.
Right.
And then also, quite frankly, what they have in their bag that they haven't shown yet. Randle, we've only seen for one preseason game, but he's been working out pretty steadily with the team for almost 2 weeks now, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's a lot there that we're going to not see until opening day. And then I think there's going to be, if not a whole set system, there's going to be a package of plays that they think can work against this Laker big front court.
Right. We keep going here, but I just want to shout out some of the different booths that are here. We got the Nas Reed Tattoo Group over here. Let's go. They're doing not real tattoos, but you could get we'll see. And then a bunch of Wolves merch out in the front there. So if you just showed up, we got a bunch of stuff there. There's also space outside. I think the speakers work out there as well. It's very cool that you are all here with us. Let's keep talking about this Lakers matchup. It's our first time to really see the team. Have you gotten to the point of like having your guess for who plays? Like what the rotation is for this one? Like what the 5 bench guys are going to be beyond the presumed starters?
I do think it'll be Rudy and Mike off the floor first.
Yeah.
Simply because they can then bring in Nas and DiVincenzo, who are their, 6th or 7th players when actually they'd be closer to 4 and 5 in many respects. So I think being able to emphasize their depth and also rest players. Maybe Randall instead of Rudy because of the rest factor. I don't know, but I would assume that they'll figure out. I think Ant will leave the team in minutes. I think that's a pretty safe bet. I think McDaniels, depending on, he'll probably. Don't you think he'll get the LeBron assignment?
Ant?
Yeah. No, McDaniels.
I don't know. I think he might guard D'Lo. I just feel like that's, and then I guess we did have. I'm trying to think of the preseason game against them. Not that that's always the best indicator.
Yeah.
But I always kind of think of putting. I mean, historically, Jaden's been at the point of attack the most.
Right.
I guess that's the question: is LeBron the main initiator, or is D'Lo the main initiator
Right.
for that team? I would assume Jaden on D'Lo.
I would say it isn't so much point of attack as it would be who else is on the floor, and that means who takes D'Lo. Right. Is it Mike Conley or Ant or somebody? That seems more likely than trying to size up with somebody.
Right.
But, again, you just asked what are the things that we don't know that I'm looking forward to. I guess one of them is who guards LeBron, and then how does that trickle away to other people, and whether or not they get somewhat fancy. I mean, Finch had talked about experimenting with zone. I don't think the Lakers are necessarily the best team for that, but I do think that they can figure things out. I'm expecting the Wolves are a better team than the Lakers. I know it's their home opener in Los Angeles, but I think that aside from Randall, the team is ready, and I think they should be favored.
I do think, though, like historically, I come into the first game feeling like, oh, yeah, I have a really good idea of who's going to play, what the rotation is going to be, who the guys who play. And then all of a sudden it's the first game and it's like, actually, Jake Layman's starting, like it's something goofy like that. I think the things I'm really interested to see what the DiVincenzo and ball movement looks like in a real NBA game, particularly like the DiVincenzo part when that's scouted for. And you understand he's a main part of this, which I think if you're JJ Redick and the Lakers staff, you're like, all right, Dante DiVincenzo is a big part of this. What does Dante DiVincenzo look like when he's been scouted for and is going to get a lot of attention as, a primary piece when he's on the floor? They're not just a guy that you kind of bring in and let him cook just because.
Right. Well, my answer to that is I think that he's a really smart. He's got a high court IQ, and I think that if they pressure him, he won't try to be a point guard. I think he'll get off it and then move without the ball. I think he'll have counters, and I also think that his time with the Knicks and Jalen Brunson acquaints him with how to play on the ball if they're loading up on the star, and how to get it to the star if there's some reason loading up on him or somebody else is loading up on somebody else. I just think he's a good 5-person on the court player. And one of the things that makes him, I think, such an attractive second option as point guard is his ability to know the limits and yet also the pressure points he can exploit. I think he'll be smart about his own skill set, and I think that regardless of how the Lakers guard him, it won't be embarrassing.
Yeah, I guess I'm just curious to see what he looks like or how good he is if he gets a lot of attention. If he gets like the equivalent of the Jaden McDaniels guarding him, not that the Lakers really have that, but like, if you try to take him away, what does that look like?
Well, let's say it's Austin Reeves who likes to try to flop and commit fouls, or like it's Rue or somebody who's got size but can maybe stay with him. I mean, I think they have options. It won't be Davis or LeBron, obviously. I don't think it'll be D'Lo. So I guess I
have like a stopper. Yeah.
No, they don't have a stopper that can do that as well. And it'd be interesting when they go Toronto, Scotty Barnes, maybe, I don't know. But really, I think in the first game, I think it's a matter of if you lean into your strengths, that it's going to be, how much Ant wants to be a teammate and how much he needs to win the game on his own. I think it is whether LeBron can be hitting the ground running. I saw Davis the other night against Phoenix. He hit like 3 threes. I mean, if all of a sudden Anthony Davis is hitting threes, then that's a really big change. So, I mean, it's first game stuff.
Right.
And, in some respects, the fact that we've spent 15 minutes on a game indicates that it's first game stuff. It's 1 out of 82, and I'm pretty confident.
Yeah. Again, we're going to take questions right here. If you have a question, come up right here. Britt, but I think a good place for us, we haven't done like official predictions yet, or I haven't. I'm sure you'll put that in your season preview piece. But I am curious where you see the Wolves win total finishing and where that ranks in the Western Conference. I'll just read through the top ones. These are just like the Vegas over-unders. Vegas has Oklahoma City as the 1 seed at 57.5. The Wolves as a 2 at 51.5. Denver as the 3 at 50.5. And then it's like Phoenix and Dallas are both 4 or 5 at 48.5. Where do you see any of those teams being above the Wolves, and what do you see their
I think
number
that's
being?
a really smart line. I think Oklahoma City may be 6 games better than anybody.
Hartenstein injury, I think, is going to be interesting there.
So maybe they're 5 games better than everybody.
Yeah, sure.
But, I mean, they have a really good roster. They had a system that worked last year. They won more games than the Wolves won last year, and it was a charmed season for the Wolves. I think 51.5 is actually a really smart line for the Wolves. I would not bet over or under on that line because I see them as a low 50-win team. I do think in terms of seeding, they could be anywhere from 2 to 5. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Rudy Gobert's 32, Mike Conley's 37, and they both were remarkably healthy last year.
I guess I'm not as concerned about those detractors of the age and guys getting hurt being as what's kind of the biggest thing that's sort of shifted in my mind over the last couple of weeks is this idea of depth, right? And if Mike can only play 60 games, I'm not sure that's the like death knell that it would have been a year ago. Anyone, really anybody, even if Ant has to miss like 10 games for whatever, like I think there's a little bit more of a like baked in night-to-night competency.
I think that's true, but if you were to say, who's the key to the Wolves defense? It's Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
Who's the key to the Wolves offense? Last season, without a doubt, it was Mike Conley.
Key to the offense? Yeah,
in the offense. I mean, I
guess that's what I'm saying is like feel like Dante can fill that more. I feel more confident about that.
But if Dante DiVincenzo is your starting point guard to begin the season, most people would identify that as a weakness. If you have that, I just got through saying a lot of really nice things about DiVincenzo because I think he's great. I think he's a combo guard, and I think he is somebody who can do the point guard position in a pinch, but he's not going to be able to guide the flow. He's not going to get Rudy as involved as Mike Conley is. He's not going to be able to defer to Ant as naturally as Mike Conley does. There's just a lot of things about Mike Conley that basically cinches together the offense. And I understand. I mean, they were a 17th ranked offense last year. It isn't like running that offense is necessarily king, but I think they're both old by NBA standards. One is the key to defense. One is the key to offense. And if I'm looking at the downside of this team, what I would say is the way they go from 2 to 5 or perhaps lower is one of those guys or perhaps both going down with injuries.
Yeah, no, I mean, and again, I would have said that for sure 2 weeks ago. I have been moved by the Dante DiVincenzo, specifically like his ability to be a point guard. I thought he was just going to be like a fill in and do it a little bit like Nickeil Alexander-Walker.
But what was your first question? Your first question is, how will Dante DiVincenzo react when teams start to scout him and be a guy?
Yep.
I mean, and so that is the thing. He is an unknown quantity at the place where you're feeling comfortable.
Yeah, that's totally fair. I think pre-trade, I had some of this idea in my head going of like, maybe it is just they're running it back. They're going to play a very similar team to last year, and they're going to kind of coast around the 4 or 5 seed for a while with the idea that, okay, maybe get it all together at the end of the season, finish strong, blah, blah, blah. Like the classic team that's been there before. To me, it seems like now with a team that is needing to find itself a little bit,
right?
Just they're going to have a new identity given the changes that they made. I just believe in that look a little bit more. I believe in the depth a little bit more. I believe in the idea that if something goes wrong, it doesn't sink them to a 44-win team like I did before, and I think it sinks them to 48 or whatever.
But a 44-win team in the West will be a coin flip on whether they make the play-in.
Exactly, and I don't.
So
I don't think they have that floor anymore. I think they have more of like a condensed reality of their win total.
I agree with that. I think that the worst that they fall is to the upper level of the play-in, and that a lot has to go wrong for that to happen. I mean, it has to be a Memphis like wipeout.
I'm saying 53 wins, 2 seed.
53 wins and 2 seed.
Yeah.
Well, I think that would be the top 10 percentile of what I think would happen.
Mm-hmm.
I don't disagree; it could happen, but I think that they were.
I think I would take the over on 52.5.
Well, you're more optimistic than I am.
I know, and I'm kind of surprised by that. But like, I think a 6-win gap between them and Oklahoma City feels a little large to me. And maybe I'm overrated, or not acknowledging the depth of the West, because I think that's why the overall numbers here are depressed some.
Sure.
But I don't know. I'm a little. Maybe it is more.
OKC added a guy who arguably is better than Jade McDaniels in on-ball defense.
Sure.
And they have a couple of guys who are entering. I mean, SGA is probably entering his prime. He's an MVP favorite this year. Chet Holmgren got to know the NBA a little bit. Hartenstein is out for a month, granted, maybe even a month and a half, but he's an offensive rebounding fool. He fits perfectly with that front court. And they got a bunch of guys who know their roles. Between Caruso and Dort, they can guard 2 stars in a game.
Yep.
Very, very few NBA teams can do that. They're excellently coached. They have a system that they know what they're doing. I think they're the best team in basketball, and that includes the Celtics.
I think that system changes with the presence of Hartenstein, because he is a different type of player that they did not have in that system a year ago. True. He's not there at the beginning, so you don't get your sea legs under you within that scheme. I would still take the Thunder to win more games than the Wolves.
Right.
If I'm saying the Wolves are 53, I'm still taking the Thunder to have more.
Right.
I think people are viewing all of what the Thunder did as additive and not giving any credit to the idea that there might be some displacement from the presence of Caruso and specifically Hartenstein, in that it evolves it
right
in the way that I'm factoring in some displacement from Julius Randle in particular, and even DiVincenzo of change. I think the change that the Wolves are seeing in their roster is just as prevalent as Oklahoma City is in what
I agree. But I would say that the odds, put it this way, Hartenstein and Caruso are the new additions there. Randall and DiVincenzo are the new additions here.
Those 2 guys are better. Yeah.
I think that's comparable, except for the fact that I come back to.
You're okay. It's still recording here.
I come back to the idea that it is, to me, the biggest variable of the season is how Chris Finch and the team finesses Randall and Nas at the 4.
Yeah.
Politically, systemically.
Mm-hmm.
They both have player options next year. With Cat gone, neither one has an automatic claim to that position, although due to politics and a lot of other things, Randall will start. But Randall on the court and the half court with Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert is not optimal.
Right.
Naz Reid on the court with Rudy Gobert and Anthony Edwards is optimal. So, and Julius Randle, I can't believe I said his name again correctly, but he is somebody who would work better in the second unit as a guy who can go get a bucket.
Theoretically, I'm with that theory too. I just don't think we know yet. Like I don't think we know what.
If Julius Randle has a chance to be a ball hog, and he's good at it, I think that second unit will be elevated as a result.
And I just think you can get him with the second unit being the way that you do rotations.
Yeah, no, and I get it. I mean, you still have. I think he and DiVincenzo worked pretty well together in New York. They seem to like each other in their whatever it was, 12 minutes on the court the other night. But I don't know. I would put it this way. The test now, because we're 2 days away from opening or 3 days away from opening night.
Right.
Would you feel better or worse about the team if it were announced tomorrow that Naz Reid will start and Julius Randle will come off the bench? I'd feel better.
I'd feel worse because I think the Julius Randle working is where this team finds its ceiling. And I think you really decrease your Julius Randle works element if you're mitigating his role. I'm not saying that's going to for sure happen. I just think I think this team finds its ceiling with Julius Randle, given the player that he is.
Well, maybe one of the ways Julius Randle finds his ceiling as the go-getter in the second unit.
Could be. That could be. To be determined. All right, we'll start taking some questions here. And yeah, we'll just keep going. You can stand wherever, you're good. Oh yeah, take a seat.
This actually tails exactly off your current conversation. So I actually have a bold prediction that I wanted to send because I listened to your recent podcast and bold predictions, loved it. So my bold prediction is going to be one that Britt, I don't think, agrees with. And I think Julius Randle finishes more games than Rudy Gobert. And just the case for that, in New York, Julius, I think, played the same amount of clutch games that Rudy Gobert did, and that's kind of how I'm differentiating this. That's where you're going to have the difference. And I think when you saw the minutes where Cat was out, who was in?
Nas?
Kyle Anderson was actually closing a lot of those games. And I think Finch leaned into the playmaking that Kyle Anderson provided in those moments. So I think he's going to really value the playmaking that Julius Randle brings to the table, potentially as a small ball five in certain situations against certain teams. So that basically betting on that and health of Julius Randle with that. And I was interested to hear your thoughts.
You want to take it?
Sure. First of all, I don't think Kyle Anderson and Julius Randle are comparable as playmakers. Julius Randle is somebody who passes as a second resort. I think Kyle Anderson passes as a first resort. I think that's crucial, especially in crunch time moments. I will also say that what they bring to the table offensively also matters there. If he is closing more games than Rudy, let's think back to all the times Rudy Gobert stepped up and really made a difference in crunch time last year.
That's what I was going to say. How good was Rudy in the clutch last year?
So
everybody remembers the Lucas shot, but not all the rest of the stuff.
I don't think that, first of all, I don't think it's a stupid theory or question, but I also think that you do have to acknowledge if you're giving Randle crunch time minutes, he's a 10 or 11-year veteran who loves those situations a little too much for this roster, in my opinion.
Sure.
So let me just clarify. I do think Randle would close with Rudy very often. I'm mostly saying I think against small ball opponents.
So you think Randle's going to close all the time then, basically?
Exactly. And there might be moments where Rudy doesn't close.
Yeah. No, and that it firmly fits into I'm curious to see. I don't know, because I think it is fair to assume that Finch has a real, appreciation for Randall and desire to use him in every way possible. So we will see. Anybody else have a question? You want to come up and there we go. You ready? Make a line. Yeah, whatever. Anybody just pop in.
Is there a line outside? I think that's what he was saying before.
How you guys doing?
I don't
I
know.
don't know if that's true.
Hey, my name's Joey. So my question is, I feel like we have a lot of guys competing for serious rotation.
I can't hear you.
this year.
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's
there
right.
you go. I feel like we have a lot of guys competing for serious rotation minutes this year. I'd say it's pretty likely that one of the top 8 guys, other than Ant, are going to get traded by the end of the season. Do you guys agree? And if you do, who do you guys think that guy would be?
I think if we just look at it from look at the salary standpoint, you got to look at Nikhil, and what he, are they going to be able to re-sign him? Is the answer to that is going to be, that would be very difficult. A lot of different things would happen. I just struggled to see them trading Nikhil because, what are you going to trade him for? You're going to get a draft pick? They might as well just use Nikhil, right? So as to be able to play and help you win during the regular season or in the playoff. I think Nikhil's probably one of those guys who's more valuable as a playoff guy than maybe even is as a regular season. I think it's just our inclination to think somebody's going to get traded because there's so many. What really happens so often is guys get hurt and we go, oh man, there's 12 rotation players on this team. Well, how often are all 12 of those guys actually healthy, in an 82 game season? Somebody's unfortunately going to probably get hurt for an extended period of time. But at the same time, if I had to pick someone, it's got to be Nikhil. Who else? I don't even know who the other contenders for being traded would be. Who do you think would be traded?
Well, having said that, one of my fears / slight expectations is there will be more injuries this year. I want 8. I want a good 8. But a direct answer to your question, in February, Julius Randle might be a really interesting piece. And he's an expiring, but he's also somebody who could be attractive to a team that wants that kind of an anchor to elevate themselves. So there are 2 types of teams that might want him in February. And I also think, I'll tell you quite frankly, if Julius Randle has a really good year this year, they're in trouble in terms of what they're going to do going forward, because you can't pay Julius Randle and Naz Reid what they both want. That's why Cat got traded in the first place. I think Naz Reid will show that he's worth between $25 and $30 million a year this season for multiple seasons. And the fact, given his age, that might step up. If it's a long-term deal, it might be more than it might be 5 for 128 or something,
Yeah.
So I think I regard Julius Randle as a luxury on this team. I know you regard him as a key to the ceiling, and that's a cool way to look at it if everybody gets along and it's a kumbaya season. And Naz Reid, after waiting patiently while Karl Anthony Towns took a lot of his minutes, even though when he played, the Wolves did not experience a significant drop-off, suddenly gets a guy who is older than Cat and is less skilled than Cat, suddenly doing that same thing. That hometown discount may go away. It may be that, all right, I'm renouncing my player option, and let's see what the market says.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I could totally, that's the most likely outcome, I think, of how it goes with Randall in the 12 months from now or 9 months from now, whatever. I guess I just think most teams hit their ceiling in the kumbaya versions of themselves, right?
And we had that last year.
Yeah.
I mean, the Wolves had a charm season. Charms don't usually run long streaks.
Right.
And teams that surprisingly make the conference finals don't have a great denouement usually. Usually right. That season afterwards is not the same ceiling. I'm not, trying to piss on everybody's parade here because I don't necessarily think it'll happen. I actually am bullish on this team. I just got through saying low 50s and wins.
Right.
And the West is brutal. And I actually like this team's chances more in the postseason now that Ann has had that lesson of conditioning and following it through. Conley and Rudy are another step closer to oblivion and needing that ring. There's a lot to like about this team if they get into a playoff series of 7 games.
Right.
But I also think the road is rockier than what last season led us to believe is happening.
Yeah, no, I hear that. That's totally fair. If you have more questions, you can just kind of come up here and grab the mic. Anybody over here have a question? No? I know nobody's got a question. You guys are not in line? Come up here. Yeah, grab it. Just grab it. What's up, man?
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you to Falling Knife and thank you to the two of you for all the content you guys give
Thank you,
us. Really appreciate it. My question is, if you guys had to pick one thing that intrigues you the most about this team to be successful, I think most of our expectations is Western Conference Finals or maybe even a championship again. So if there was one thing that you guys had to pick that just intrigues you the most, good or bad, about this team going into the season, what would it be?
I think for me, it's Ant reaching another level, but like specifically doing that like with Rudy, and I don't feel like in the first 2 Rudy years we've been like, oh, it's the Ant and Rudy thing, you know what I mean? Like in the way that you might have said about like Harden and Capella in the past, or just like a Rudy being able to unlock something in Ant that Ant is ready to let him unlock. I think just like to this day, and I get it because Rudy can't really catch or whatever, but like there's an element of what Rudy does offensively that I still think is very underrated. And if embraced, I think this team, if Ant embraces it, pushes this team offensively to like a whole nother level, like way better than the 16th, 17th offense that they were last season. Now, am I saying there's an 80% chance that happens? No. But it's been like kind of one of the things I've been most interested in the preseason is noticing how like when Rudy and Ant get in 2-man game, that looks like normal. And every other time we saw it the past 2 years, not every other time, but often it seemed like, they're playing together here. And there's a lot of conversation right now, about like, who's the second best player on the team? Like, I think Rudy is the second best player on the team and it's not really close, Dante's looked great. Maybe Randall's going to do something. Kyle talked about Jaden being elevating to a whole nother level this year. The most likely second best player on this team is Rudy Gobert. And if he can find some of that on the offensive side of the floor with Ant, I think that makes this team a lot more special. You know what I think?
I think the obvious answer is Ant. And Anthony Edwards has become a cult hero and a folkloric figure. And he has the personality for that. And he is one of the most instinctively decent people, and that shines through. But he still has to play basketball at that level. I mean, he has charmed a nation and a world with being an incredibly charismatic, naturally wonderful talker, comedian, compassionate person. And he has also demonstrated a phenomenal amount of athleticism. And he can be a phenomenal defender when he wants to be. Can he be what is required of the face of the NBA and what is required of a guy who's getting as much shine as he's getting right now is to lead a team, if not to a championship, pretty damn close. And he's not done that yet. He's gotten them to the Western Conference Finals. But in those Western Conference Finals, he deflated. He was at most the 4th best player in that series. You can't have that. And so I'm looking for the fact that this guy who cherishes his innocence, and I hope to God he can retain it, is now being invaded by the horde. ESPN, everybody. Everybody wants a piece of him. He's in documentaries. He's this, he's this, he's this, he's this. And it is so hard to be a human being under that kind of microscope. It's not like LeBron, who like grew up with it as a high school phenomena. This guy was not on the big radar at that young of an age. And his very way of interacting with people, one of the things that is so important is he has the humility and compassion of somebody who's innocent to that world. And whether he can retain that, whether he can be a great charismatic individual and a basketball player who can lead a team to a championship at the same time, is a wonderfully dramatic story that I look forward to watching.
That's well put. The Ant as a leader arc is going to be super interesting. Thank you for the question. You have a question here? Keep them coming.
Yeah. So
I like how everybody really leans over for this.
yeah, I know. I gotta like bend down here.
Like do this.
So we got a lot of guys.
Stand up.
I'm excited about Minot. I'm excited about Rob. I'm excited about TJ. Which one of these guys do you think ends up actually being impactful as a rotation guy, especially during the playoffs, but maybe during the regular season too? Is Minot really going to be that backup wing that we need? What do you guys think?
I mean, during the playoffs, probably none of them play unless something goes great, right? I mean, because that.
Do you not need one of them though? Do you need?
Probably not. I mean, you probably play 8 guys in the playoff if everyone's healthy, right?
Right.
For the starting 5 and Nas, Dante, and Nikhil off the bench. That's 8. You know, and then Minot, Shannon, and Dillingham and Ingles are like 9, 10, 11, 12, right? I mean, but that's today, right? Who knows? So let's see what happens.
Right.
Can the Minot ascension continue? Can Dillingham, get more comfortable?
Which one would you be most excited about actually having a role on the team?
Dillingham, easy.
Dillingham. Yeah.
I mean, it's positionally that's the greatest need, right? Another handler, another creator.
Right.
Rob Dillingham, who I kind of don't think is going to play on Tuesday night, I think can do things that nobody else on the roster can do.
Right. You had 2 parts to that question. You said, who do I think will be and who would be I'm most excited about?
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think Rob Dillingham has the best chance of being an impactful player in the rotation this year, because I think if he plays really well, they'll want to extend that out. It's not only good for the team, but it's good for the future. And I think that that is something that they really want to keep an eye on, because the spot after Conley, I mean, Dante DiVincenzo is a fantastic bridge and the reason why the Nas Reed trade was a good trade. But you need a point guard for the future. And as I just got through sparring with Dane about, I don't think he is necessarily the point guard of the future. Who would I be most excited about? I saw Josh Minot as a rookie having so much fun and playing great basketball, and I got really excited. I think he likes to say he was in fear of failure and all this other stuff. I think he was pissed off he wasn't getting minutes. I mean, that's what I read out of the guy.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he got some really good burn in the preseason. He's back to being the guy I like so much as a rookie, only he's now 2 years more mature. And so nothing would please me more than to have a Minot renaissance where he's threatening Nah and putting Ingles on the bench and being a guy who becomes one of those 14, 7, and 5 guys while playing decent defense. And I don't think that that's totally out of the question, but I would put the odds at about 15%.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That he would average 14, 7, and 5? I'm taking the under on 15% on that. How many guys did that last year? I think, yeah, thank you. I just think like the idea of Minot is interesting. It's just what sort of opportunity is he going to have? There's something to be said about like, oh, you really improved your shot, and then you actually made your shot in the preseason. That matters to me. We got another question here.
by
Lean
this
over. Get
time
down there.
next
A little
year,
bit lower. You got to get a little lower.
there we go. By this time next year, what percentage does A-Rod and Laurie own the team? And you can't say 50-50.
I think the most likely scenario is they own 100% of the team 12 months from now. Yeah. Let's cheers. All right. The people are cheering about that. Yeah. No, I mean, there's a scenario in which we don't know how this legal situation is going to happen. I do think we're going to have more information on the ownership stuff here pretty soon. The arbitration's the first week of November. I think we'll get some news next week. I'm not saying it's 100% chance that they're 100% owners in a year, but I think that is their goal, is to take their 36% that they have and turn it into 100%. Not even 12 months from now, maybe 2 months from now, but we'll see.
I think November is going to be a month where people think that things are going to happen, don't necessarily happen. I don't think we're going to know the results of the election until many, many days after November 5th. And I think once this November arbitration thing happens, we still will have no idea really what the final thing will be, because the side that loses will appeal. They both have phenomenal lawyers. Now that Bloomberg's involved, everybody's got a bottomless pit of money to risk on this. Meanwhile, the value of the franchise keeps going up, which means as long as the people cling to what ownership they have, they're just getting richer as they sue each other. I don't see any way that there is 100% ownership, because Glenn will keep the 20% that is still there if they go from 40 to 60, and then we'll maybe sell it then. But I have the impression that he would hang on to it and continue to sue. So I think it'll either be 80 if they win, and it'll continue to be like 37.5 if they lose. But I don't expect, if you're asking me, and I think the closet question really was, who do I think is going to win the lawsuit? I'll tell you, I have no idea, because I think that once you get that level of money involved and that many lawyers involved, and the fact that it hasn't been de facto settled by now, I think there is a lot of he said, she said, fine print. I thought this. Well, what you thought isn't legally accurate. I have precedents to back it up. No, you don't. I have better precedents. We are going to get into the fine print, and we are going to get into what has already been a relatively bitter negotiation, although I do want to give them, again, credit to both sides for just shutting the F up when the team was in the playoffs, and that should have been the focus. And then my general fallback position is, when billionaires and multimillionaires are fighting, I don't pay attention.
It is kind of crazy how arbitration starts on November 4th and the election is November 5th. That's funny. We got another question. Let's get it, little man. What do you got?
All right. So for the Knicks,
Put it right by your mouth, right there. Yeah.
last year for the Knicks, Julius Randle had about 24 points. How many do you think he'll score for the Timberwolves?
It's a good question. I haven't really super thought about. Probably less than 24, because it's just on a team that has some more primary scorers on it. Do you think Julius Randle will score 20 a game this year, Britt? Got quiet in here.
I think that
you want to just get up here? Maybe you do the rest of the pod with us. They listen to you. I don't know if they listen to us. Yeah.
I think it'll be a yo-yo. I think that some nights he'll get 28 and some nights he'll get like 7, because I do think that he is a rhythm player. And if he's a smart player, which isn't necessarily a slam dunk, that he will recognize when he's not going and give up the ball. That's his best chance of staying on the floor. But I will say this, if he's having a good year, he can have a better year scoring 19 than he can scoring 24 if his defense and his other numbers are up.
So what was your name?
Elliot.
Elliot. Do you have another question?
Well, I just have to say one more thing.
Yeah.
The Timberwolves need to free Luka.
Free Luka. Yeah, Elliot. Free Luca. Hey, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. We'll see. They got a deep team. So I think he'll play once some guys start getting injured a little bit, and free Luca. Thank you for your question.
If they free Luca, do you want them to free Luca win or lose?
What?
Do you want them to free Luca win or lose?
Win.
Only win?
Only win.
Then I think he's partially freed.
Yeah. Love it, man. Thank you very much. Does anybody else have a question here? We can take a couple more. Question? Yeah. Yes, no. Anybody else want to ask a question? I don't know if this is a line or just people up there at the bar. Yeah, come on up.
What matchup are you most excited to see this year?
It's got to be the Knicks, right?
I mean, they only play twice. I actually think that Oklahoma City and the Wolves bring out the best in each other. And I've loved the hell out of those games. And what I like most about those games is that the loser walks away knowing where they're weak. And that's the best kind of series where, all of a sudden, I know from Greg Hansen, who was running defensive coverages, told me that they changed their pick and roll coverage after SGA because he would fake a certain way and then keep the ball, and that they had certain cues on how to guard pick and roll. And when SGA kind of destroyed those cues, that's the type of rivalry I like. I like the idea that you're structuring. I mean, for example, the last couple of years, let's face it, it was Denver because it was Jokic and they had a plan for Jokic and they were really evenly matched, two great teams. And that was a fun rivalry because the Wolves figured out a way to beat Jokic. This year, I think they're going to have to figure out a way to beat SGA, and I think that's going to be really fascinating.
I'm into the Dallas matchup too. I guess that's the first matchup they played them the fourth game of the season. I think like how Finch and this front office thinks is like they're about, what can we do to our roster or our style of play to beat the team that just beat us. So Dallas, the fourth game of the year. I think both teams will probably be pretty healthy. I think that one will be interesting too. That'd probably be. I go like OKC, Dallas, New York for the Cat element. I am interested to see them play Jokic again though too.
Yeah, no, I agree. And New Orleans with DeJounte Murray and Zion.
Yeah,
I think what's great. If you love good basketball, what you want to see is how your team's best effort stacks up against a really, really good team, because that's how you learn a lot about a team. It's great to be able to play Charlotte, and what we found out about one of those Charlotte games is that the team was way overconfident sometimes. But for the most part, high-level basketball with two good coaches, and Oklahoma City is a great coach. Chris Finch is a Great coach. Mike Malone is a great coach. I do think that the NBA, if you're in the Western Conference, your record isn't going to be as good as if you were in the East, but fans will get to see a lot more really good games.
I like that. Do you have another question?
I was just going to say thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We can take another question or two. If Dan from Falling Knife is here as well, you can come talk at some point. I don't know where you are, but yes, go ahead. Fire away.
Okay, cool. Hey, guys. Nice to have the live show here. I've been to one a little bit. So
awesome.
Thanks for coming out and doing this. So I guess my question is, I agree with your take from, I think it was last week. I can't remember exactly when that was, is that we'll probably play 10 guys. The rotation will be 10 deep to start the season.
That'd be my guess.
At least I would imagine. But excluding the rookies, imagine the starters, plus Nas, Nikhil, DiVincenzo, plus Ingles, and then Minot. I think he'll get some minutes, I think. But I guess we'll see. So I guess my question is, I think Finch is going to lean on Ingles just a little bit more than I personally would like. It's like, I don't know if I love watching him plod around out there. I think he's a little too slow for my taste. But like Dane said, he's kind of playing that way the whole time. But
it's his game. Yeah.
Truthfully, getting my question here, though, is like, why should he get any minutes at all? Just because I feel like his big purpose for being brought here is playmaking and that three-point shooting. But as we've seen, you can only take away so much from preseason. But like DiVincenzo's got some playmaking chops, and obviously he's going to light it up from 3-point range. So why should Joe Ingles get any minutes at all? I feel like he's going to get some. Maybe he won't. Maybe this is just moot, but I feel like Finn's just going to lean on him a little bit. So why should he?
Because he's probably top 3 shooter in the NBA over the last decade. I mean, just if you look at it, like I just think he's going to be the person. Granted, we'll see how much he's aged out. But, like, if he's able to do anything like he was able to do the last couple of years, I think Wolves fans are going to really like him and really feel the value of that shooting. I really think that's going to be – I mean, it's so different than Kyle Anderson. I mean, Joe Ingles is a mid-40s three-point shooter for the past decade. And I would focus a little less on the playmaking element of it. I think he's going to be a ball mover, but just the presence of a mid-40s, even if it's low 40s – three-point shooter, I think we're going to feel that. And I think Finch is trusting him as a mover and a shooter. And we're going to kind of buy into that a little bit more. And if he's washed, he's washed. And then you take him out. There's other options there.
I kind of would say the same thing, but in a different way. I think the gap between possible outcomes for Ingles is wider than it is for anybody on the Timberwolves. I think that there is a possibility that he is invaluable in many of the same ways that Kyle Anderson was as a playmaker and as a three-point shooter. I can see times in the third quarter where Conley, Gobert, and Ingles are on the court at the same time after that first starters rotation has happened, and they come in late in the third quarter, which are relatively important minutes, and Ingles is doing really well. I also think that a guy of Ingles' age and pedigree doesn't really care about the preseason, so the last 5 games don't really matter to him. And so I think that, and if he fails, he's getting $4 million. He'll be worth that in the locker room and talking to people, and with his kind of enforcer attitude, he's got a little bit of a mean streak to him. So I regard him as somebody who could be very important, or he could be only important in intangible ways that aren't necessarily on the court. But either way, it was a good signing.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer.
My pleasure.
Real quick, thank you everyone for coming out to WolvesFest. My name is Dan Herman. I'm one of the owners of Falling Knife Brewing Company. Shout out to Britt and Dane for coming out here, doing the live pod. WolvesFest is always one of my biggest points of the year. I love it so much. We get to enjoy this, right? Like, we get to enjoy being fans of the Timberwolves. We're going to stick around after the podcast. We're going to show the singular greatest moment of Timberwolves fandom, which is Game 7 against the Nuggets, right? We're going to put it on the screens. We're going to show all the sound. You're going to watch it go real bad in the first half, and we're going to watch everything come back up on the backside of it. It was so amazing. Quick story about that experience here. Definitely there were only 148 of you because that's our fire capacity. But the other side of the quarry, which is where the Home Depot and Target over on in Northeast are, one of our friends was like, I assume the Let's Go Wolves chants are yours. So 1.5 miles away, you could hear the fan base here cheering for the Wolves winning Game 7. And I really tried very hard to get a friend of mine saying, fuck Jamal Murray on ESPN. I submitted it as late as I could, but I couldn't get it on. Oh, sorry, kid. Thank you for coming out. We really never envisioned that this would hit this level as us opening this brewery, being Timberwolves fans. But you've all shown out so absolutely hard for this. I was going to say a different word, but again, there's a kid there. Let's do this on Tuesday. And really more importantly, let's also do this tomorrow. Let's watch Game 5. Game 5 until they're gone, right? Thank you for all. Thank you for everything, everybody. Let's continue to build this fan base.
Dan. This was all his idea to make Falling Knife a Wolves and Lynx bar. This is really cool. Really cool.
Britt, my question is this. How would John Randall do in the 90s playing basketball?
Yeah,
I think he'd be a mean power forward. And I also think he would probably be called a little too often for charging. On the other hand, I wouldn't want to try to screen him.
He's like Eugene Omarui. No, nobody knows who that is? Okay. All right, we'll do a couple more questions.
So
Don't have that beer. That's mine. That's mine.
So DiVincenzo, he had like the third most 3-pointers last year. Behind Luka Doncic and Steph. Do you think that'll get the most this year or second most?
I mean, I think he's going to get him up. I don't know. I mean, Steph's going to shoot a lot, right? Like, but I think that's what's going to be really interesting this year is like they're going to have a super, super high volume 3-point shooter. Carl was a really, really good 3-point shooter. He didn't shoot that many though, right? Carl shot like 5 a game. And I think there's a world where DiVincenzo shoots like 9 or 10 a game, kind of like Steph does. So I don't know if he's going to lead the league in them just because I'm not sure how many minutes he's going to play. But I think it's going to be like nothing like we've seen before from a Wolves standpoint of just somebody who is such a volume 3-point shooter. We've seen it in preseason, right? Like you leave Dante DiVincenzo for a second, he's just going to shoot it. And in his career, he's made those at a really high clip. So I don't know. I don't know what the exact volume will end up looking like, but I would get ready for Dante DiVincenzo to bomb threes, and I think it's going to be fun.
I think he has a better chance of leading the league in total 3-point attempts than he does of averaging the most per game. I think that both Luka and Curry will probably not play as many games as he plays. On the other hand, he's coming off the bench, at least initially, and I would imagine for quite a while. And so the question then becomes, does he shoot them at the same amount that he did for the Knicks? And I think he does. I think the odds of him leading in per games are decent. I'd put him in a parlay with like 4 or 5 other players. But
parlay.
But the point is, the Timberwolves have a player that somebody who comes down, dribbles, gets about 4 dribbles beyond beyond the half-court mark, and just shoots. That is not a bad decision for that player. That is a new experience for Timberwolves watchers because we are accustomed to seeing a guy come down, and if they suddenly stop and shoot, despite whatever anybody else is doing on the floor, it is regarded as kind of a selfish or a bad thing. If somebody is hitting 40% of their shots and has an open look right away, and if they hit a couple, will alter the defense in terms of how they play them, then that is a good decision and a good shot. And that is something that Wolves fans are going to have to get used to, provided he continue to hit them at the level he has.
Thank you for the question, man. Appreciate it. Thank you. There we go. We can do a couple more real quick. Yeah. We'll do a couple more real quick, and then they'll show the game. Speed round, according to Britt. Lightning round. What's up?
So I've got a legit basketball question and then more of like a fluff kind of
Get it real close to your mouth like this.
Okay, yeah. So legit basketball question and then more of like a fluff question. Legit basketball question.
Do it right by your mouth, though. They're not going to be
all the way in. Okay. Last year we went from Cat and Rudy. A lot of size. Small ball was dead. Not anymore. Do we have any concerns about how we'll do on the glass? With whether it be Rudy and Nas out there, or whether it's Rudy and Julius, John Randall, one of those two. How do you think we're gonna?
I think asking about the rebounding, in terms of like what you lost with Carl, you lost more rebounding than you lost 3-point shooting, and I think so I think that's good to bring up. Like again, Carl, incredible 3-point shooter, just not a volume 3-point shooter. Shot 5 threes a game. He got 9+ rebounds a game. Not that those are created equally, but I think there's a world, right, where we're a month and a half into the season. We're like, man, like they're not rebounding that well. I think Jaden could take a step in that realm, right? Nas, I think, did take a step as a rebounder last season, which makes me a little bit more encouraged about he did. He was
It's
a better
still-
rebounder.
It's his weakness, though.
It's his weakness, but it was better. It was better
better.
last year. Julius, like, it's not going to be like Cat. Cat is like a clean the glass guy, right? Like, if you miss around the basket and he's there, he's going to get it. Cat has actually like really good, I think, rebounding tendencies.
That's good instincts, right?
Honestly, I probably don't know enough about Julius and his game and what that looks like. But I think losing Cat hurts you as a rebounding team more than it hurts you as a 3-point shooting team. And maybe a lot of people wouldn't think that. Yeah, another question. Sorry, you want to go ahead?
I think it's a good question. I'll be brief to get other people in, but I think a lot depends on Jaden McDaniels upping his rebounding total, and if that happens, can he continue to be a defensive stopper on the wing and rebound at the same time? If he can't, then they're going to have to emphasize Ant rebounding more than they've previously kind of wink allowed him to rebound when he felt like it. It will be more necessary.
Yeah, no, I agree. You got another one?
Yeah. Well, I think about like the Dallas series and how that went in the paint. It was like, and now we have even less size in there, so that makes me a little nervous.
Sure.
But the secondary question: you guys know anything about any sort of rebranding coming up? No. Okay.
I think you need a new ownership group before you
Yeah,
get a rebrand.
that might be part of it.
I would assume.
That JJ and Ant picture, man, I'm still waiting for it.
Yeah, we'll make that happen. All right, we'll do two more questions. I think we have two right here. Yeah, no.
They just got to bring back the classic logo. That's the rebrand.
There you go.
This guy's got the classic Seattle Supersonics
yeah.
on right here.
I was gonna wear my Wolves hat, but I went with this one.
Kevin Durant.
That's right. Well, Sean Kemp. Anyway.
Hershey Hawkins.
Oh man, back and forth. Detlef Shrimp.
Yeah. You want to keep going?
There you go.
No,
Sam Perkins.
Gary Payton. Moving on. Okay. So other than the rebounding thing, do you guys see much of a downside to the Cat trade? Because I really didn't. It seemed like kind of a steal.
Well, the points, obviously. I mean, a guy's a career, I think it's like 39-7. If you round up, the guy is a guaranteed 40% shooter. He's done it almost every year he's been in the league. Julius Randle is a career 33.3% shooter.
Okay.
And was under that last year.
Okay.
That's a huge difference. A lot depends on how much Randle is used and how he is used and how that does or does not get in the way of the development of Naz Reid.
Yep.
I think if you're looking at the pros of Dante DiVincenzo and the negatives of no Cat, it's already pretty damn close.
Yeah.
I think that Randle overall impact, if it is relatively positive, makes it a good trade even without the Detroit pick.
Yeah.
I happen to like the trade because we're not even necessarily talking about this year. It really sets this team up for the future.
Yeah, with the draft pick too.
Provided they don't re-sign Randle at an enormous amount of money. And if they do, it's because he's suddenly really good.
Yeah.
So I like the trade. I miss Cat. I'll miss him for a lot of ways. He's a fascinating figure to have covered and written about.
Yeah.
And he's a genuine dude. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
But I think DiVincenzo for Cat, even up, is very close on its face.
Nice. And then just curious what you guys are looking for from Ant this year to see if he made the next step, take the next leap.
Ant?
Yeah. And then I'll shut up and listen.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mentioned it before. I want to see him become one of the best pick and roll players in the NBA. I think there's no reason with his skill set and with Rudy Gobert that he can't, just realize how valuable that is. I want Ant to do that and then be a more consistent defender, like I kind of loved in that, was it the Knicks game when McDaniels got in foul trouble and he had to come out of the game and Ant was like, all right, I got Brunson. And he just started picking up Brunson. Like, I don't think Ant is ever going to be your Lou Dort, if you will,
Right.
or you're like, we're just putting this guy on this guy the whole game. But can Ant a little bit more be relied upon outside of the fourth quarter? Like, Ant always wants to guard the best player in the fourth quarter. Like, can we get first, second, third quarter Ant, like, sometimes where you're awesome defensively? I think that makes a big difference too, even on the best defense in the league. I think it would help Jaden a lot if Jaden didn't have to guard Jalen Brunson every possession or whoever, or D'Lo, on Tuesday. Like, I think part of Jaden's ceiling is found by not needing to do that every single possession, And I think Ant is a pathway there. Shooting more. Can Ant take a better quality of 3-point shots? Ant shot 41.5% on catch and shoot threes last year. We shot 36% from three overall. Can we get the mix be a little bit better?
Every season that has been true.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And part of that is just normal, early 20s shit, right? How adult can Ant be at 23 years old, understanding the answer's not all the way there. But I'm curious to see, and whatever you want to call it, the Olympics, you want to call it whatever he's done, how much has he grown up, and I would understand if the answer is not that much because he's still just 23. But again, the optimized version of this team, the best one probably has Ant having.
For me, it's all
real
about
mature play.
efficiency. And in crunch time doesn't necessarily have to be efficient because those are really, really tough shots. And he deserves to do what he needs to do to try to make those shots. Ant in the first, second, third quarters messing around with bad shot selection, that needs to stop. This guy is the supposed wannabe face of the franchise and a venerated dude. It's about time to stop taking dipsy doodle turnaround twos when his team is down 6 in the second quarter.
Agreed. All right, we'll do 2 more questions. Thank you. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, one real quick shout out to the pod. I love you guys.
Thanks, dog.
And won T-Wolves tickets to you guys last year, so that was awesome.
Thanks.
And one quick question: is Naz Reid ready to play the 5? Can he handle the true bigs in this league?
I mean, I think he's going to get minutes.
He's going to get minutes. Is he ready? Sure, he might be ready. Can he do it? I would say on balance, no.
I think he's going to be okay if he doesn't have to start at center. I think when Rudy's hurt and he has to start at center, we're going to be uh-oh, little small, defense is bad.
It's time to free Luka, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I that is actually one of the things I'm most interested to see, in general. A game Rudy doesn't play or just in the, 18 minutes Rudy doesn't play in a game. What does it look like at center?
If you want my optimistic take, we saw him guard Drummond down in Iowa, and actually he really busted his ass and he did a decent job on a guy that outweighs him by 60 pounds. I don't ever worry about Naz's effort and his want to. I think he takes a lot of pride in his defense, but I also think he has remade himself into a combo forward. And so
for sure.
I think if you're having a combo forward play center in the NBA, if that's what you're banking on to get further in the brutal Western Conference, you're in trouble. As to your question about 18 minutes when Rudy is out, I say cross your fingers.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that. I think the biggest thing people need to understand is Naz is a skinny guy. He is a small. He is not big. He is a skinny. He is closer to body type to Jaden McDaniels than he is to Karl Anthony Towns. And that in and of itself makes him maybe not a center. So when he has to do that, open question of what that looks like. I asked Finch about that before the game the other night because I was like, is Randall going to play backup center? And he goes, it'll be Naz and Randall together out there. So we'll see. That's an open question. We'll take one more question here.
Yeah, hi guys. My question is about the starting 5 regarding Randall and Ant being both, ball dominant players. Would it behoove the team to start Naz for a better offensive flow and have Julius be a primary ball handler off the bench? It's kind of my thought. Will the offense be sticky with with those 2 guys in the starting lineup?
To be determined. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I get the concern. I just don't think, in my opinion, you need to have Julius Randle to come off the bench so as to stagger Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards minutes. That's, as of today, my opinion on that.
I mean, you're preaching to the choir with that. I mean, that's what I believe and what I've been saying since the trade happened. But you have to understand that these are really, really accomplished players who are getting a ton of money. Julius Randle's been in the league for over a decade. He has been crucial to the development of at least 2 franchises. He has a player option on his contract next year. He doesn't want to accept $31 million next year because he maybe even correctly believes he deserves more in the right situation. And all of a sudden you're going to say to him, we've got this other guy who's been in the league, 2 or 3, 4 years, 5 years. He's 6th man of the year, and we want to start him over you at power forward. You can buck it up and put on a smiley face. There are some players that would be a slap in the face to, and they can't get past it. And the Wolves, the stakes are too high right now. I think that this is Chris Finch's biggest challenge, and I think it is the question in terms of what we know definitively. We know that what Julius Randle can do and how good he is at certain things, and we know what Naz Reid can do and how good he is at certain things, and we know what the existing 4 players on the court without them could do. And so what is obvious to me is Naz is a better option. But politically, what happens in the locker room, what happens moving forward, what happens to the reputation of your team. Julius Randle said all the right things in that press conference, and Chris Finch has said all the right things. They want to make it work. And I think unless he falls on his face, Julius Randle will start. How much and how integral he is up to his performance.
Thank you for the question. Thank you all for listening to us blabber on here for an hour. This has been it's been awesome. If you want to hang out, we're going to be here for a while. We'll grab a beer and going to come up and come say hi or ask a question, whatever it might be. Thank you. We literally couldn't do this all without you. Yeah. And until the season opener, he's Britt. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Grinning hard so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.